Good afternoon, YouTube. Today we are working on a 2004 Honda Rancher ES. I believe it's a 350. Let me see what it says on the other side. I think it's a 350. 330. Okay, it's a 330. What we're doing is we're doing CV. You can see right there. CV boot is ripped, so we have to take apart the left front drive shaft. So we have to take off the hub and pull the shaft out. So I'll start disassembling. The first thing you need to do is you take the wheel off, jack it up, take the wheel off, and I believe it is 17. Lug nuts are 17 millimeter. All right, so that's the start. All right, I'll be back. Okay, I'm gonna stop at this point in the disassembly and just give you a lowdown of what tools you need and how to disassemble. Okay, there's the front wheels have drum brakes, believe it or not. So this is the drum. These are the shoes, and these are the pistons that push out the shoes. Okay, and this is your axle. Going back, there's the brake and the boot. Okay, first thing you need to do, there's a center nut rather on the axle that holds the drum on. 21 millimeter. You're gonna need a 22 millimeter. 22 millimeter. Everything else that you're looking at is 17 millimeter. So you're gonna need a 17 millimeter. You're gonna need a 17 millimeter box wrench. You're gonna need some picks. You're gonna need a needle nose pliers. You're gonna need a very small pickle fork, a sledge, rubber mallet. So your needle nose pliers and your picks are to get out all the tiny cotter pins on everything. Okay, there's a cotter pin on here. There's a cotter pin on your tie rod, your steering linkage. There's a cotter pin on the lower ball joint, the upper ball joint, and there's a cotter pin on, as you can see right here, on the axle. Okay, the upper and lower ball joints and the center nut on the axle all are castle nuts. This one is on your steering linkage. Okay, now this one is a lock nut, so it basically squeezes itself on really tight. So you're gonna need a 17 millimeter, and let me show you on here. So there's a notch. There's a notch, so you're gonna have to hold the ball joint basically and the steering linkage shaft in place so you can get that off. And I would tell you to use an impact wrench to get that off, so the hammer will loosen it up for you. If you're trying to do it, trying to hold that box wrench on there and trying to twist with a 1/2 inch ratchet, it's not going to work. You're going to have to use that. Okay, so you take off your center nut first. I would then take off the bottom and upper ball joints. I would loosen the steering linkage but leave it on. That way your knuckle isn't floating around on you. You can have some ability. The top ball joint is really tight to the CV joint, so you're going to have to go in with a 17 millimeter box wrench. You can't get in there with a socket. You can't get in there with any other tool. So I don't know how I'm going to torque that up to specs, but I'll figure it out. All right, so that's where I am so far. Next part of disassembly is taking out the axle. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, as far as getting the axle out, so we have the steering knuckle out of the way, right? So we have clear pulling surface. We can pull the axle straight out. And that's all you do. Just grab a hold of it and yank on it. If you look back here, so this is the inner side. It has a C-clip, and that kind of, you see that C-clip in there? That kind of locks it in. You're gonna have to jam it back in when you jam it in, but you just grab a hold of the shaft and just yank 3 or 4 times, and it should just pop out, and the whole thing comes out. Now, as far as getting the metal bands, so I already cut them off. What you do, if you feel like you're good enough with a, with a grinder and a metal cutoff wheel, you just get in there, and if you can see here, I just barely grazed the rubber, and you just cut through it, just so you have a nice, let me get out a little bit, just a nice clean edge, and just cut through it, and then you can finish off with snips. Same thing down here. Since these are in and there's bellows in the way, you just cut these like I did here. You cut them at an angle, and you can get them off, and then you can finish. You see, I did a cut, and then I finished off with my metal snips. Same thing on the inner boot. I cut it. You can see over here, just barely grazing the rubber. So, you know, the metal axle didn't even touch the metal axle at all. It just grazed the rubber, and then you can just snap it off. All right. So the next step is disassembling one of the U-joints so we can get both boots off. Then we repack both sides and then put new boots on. All right, so I'll come back with that step. Okay, so I have the shaft is disassembled and cleaned up. You're gonna need a lot of brake cleaner, and you're gonna need a lot of paper towels and a lot of gloves. It's gonna make a mess. That grease will get everywhere. So I just wanna tell you how to take it apart. So this is your inner boot that your race sits in, okay? These are the ball bearings. This C-clip right here is what holds the inner race inside my hand. Well, let me just show you. There's a ring. If you can see that ring around the inside, you see that? That ring is where that C-clip sits. So you just get a pick, push your shaft all the way down into the bottom of this cup, and then pop that out. Then you can pull the whole thing out. So I'm going to pack this up and then put the ball bearings back in and put it back together again after I get the boots on. I'm going to put the boots on. We're going to pack this one. This one doesn't come apart, so we're going to pack it. Then we're going to put the boot on it and then seal it. And this is where your clips go, right here. You see your inner clips to hold the boot together. And then we're going to put this end together, but you have to put the boot on first. So you put this boot in, put it in, seal it, fill it with grease, seal it. Put this other boot in facing this way. Then you're going to put this back together again, and we're going to pack it with grease. We can actually fill this up with grease and then put it back together again, and then seal the boot with the metal bands. All right, I'll be back when I do that. Okay, before I get too far ahead, I just wanted to give you a little breakdown of how you're going to take apart the inner race so that you can get your boots on. Okay, I have the outer boot on. I have it packed with grease, and I have the bands tightened down, as you can see. The bands tightened down. This, I don't like how that sits up, but it's so close to the shaft, I don't think it's going to be a problem. But I think I'm going to take a rubber mallet and kind of drive this down. But the other one is sitting nice and flush. Okay? All right, so there is a what do you call it? I can't think of the word. There's a compression ring, not a compression ring, but you know what it is. I can't think of the word right now. I'm having a brain fart. You take that off. That goes around the edge right here. You can see the ring. C-clip. But and then you pull this off, and then this comes off. Okay, this sits This sits this way. This sits this way. And then this goes on the end. Then you can put your bearings in to your race. And all of that sits inside the cup with this retaining ring holding that. But anyhow, you have to take that all off. Make sure you clean this all up so you can keep the outside of the boot nice and clean. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good seal. You know, trying to put this band on with grease, the band is going to be slipping all over the place. So make sure you keep the outside nice and clean. The boots, the outer boot is just slightly smaller. If you have both, I mean, they look almost identical, but the outer boot is just slightly smaller diameter than the inner boot. So this would be the inner boot. So I'm going to have to put this on like this. I'm going to pack this full of grease all the way up, and then I'm just going to reassemble everything, and hopefully that'll keep this clean. And then I can assemble this part. You're going to do the outer clip here, just like this one. There's a ridge for it to sit in, and then the larger clip goes in here, just like it did on here. All right, so we're halfway done. It's cleaned, it's disassembled. This side, well, actually 3/4 done. This side is packed and the boot's on. I'm gonna do this side and then reassemble, and then we're done. Then we just reinsert it into the quad. I have to come in here under the light because now it's nighttime. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I wanted to show you reassembly so that you can see there's a few little tricky parts to it. Okay, as far as this inner race, it can only go on one way. If you put it on this way, you can see there's a space back here, and there's not enough room to get your C-clip on, your retaining clip. So turn it around, and you can see there's a little line inside there. Okay, come on, all the way down, and now you can get your C-clip on. Okay, so this goes on like that. Make sure, otherwise you're gonna assemble it and you're not gonna get your C-clip on. The other thing, so this goes on like this. I'm gonna put that in like that. I'm gonna put this on, like I said. You're gonna bring this up onto it. Now, you're not gonna be able to get the balls in there. You gotta come all the way up, and then you can rotate them. And now you can get the balls in. Okay, now you can get your bearings. And your bearings just pop in there. See that? Okay, so now you got that going on. I haven't put the C-clip on, but I just wanted to show you. I can't do that with two hands, with one hand. All right, so the large outer diameter goes out. The balls, you have to bring it all the way up on the inner race so that you can rotate it so you can fit your large ball bearings back in, and then your retaining clip, your C-clip. So I'm going to take this apart and put it back together again with the C-clip and everything, and then I'll come back, and then we'll put the boot on, and then final assembly back into the vehicle. Okay? Okay, here it is fully assembled. The retaining clip is in. Ball bearings are all in, and it's ready to go into the base, and then we're going to put the clip in to hold it all in there. Okay? And then we'll slide the boot down and fasten everything together. I'll be right back. Just a real quick note, it helps to have a vise to put it in when you're putting the bands on. So you can have it steady and it's not going to move on you, and you can cinch them down. And what I used was a set of channel locks to pinch them. You just need something with some really some really heavy pinching power. So I use channel locks. Okay, so it's assembled, it's clean, it's ready to go back in. I'll be right back. So once again, here we are, fully assembled. All right, pinch down, pinch down, and pinch down. Fully assembled, seated, clean. We're going to put a little grease on our splines on both ends. This is the inner. We're going to have to jam that back in. So we're going to put a little grease on here to make it go in a little easier. That's it. Nothing that I could think of out of the ordinary. I told you already about how to reassemble this whole thing. See, everything is nice and moves really, really well. Everything is lubricated inside there. That's the main thing. Make sure you lubricate inside. Fill this whole cup up with this is the grease, this black grease. All right, I have enough left over. Like I said, I'm going to put some on here. I'm going to put some on here and reassemble. All right. I'll come back with final assembly, and then that'll be the end of the video. Okay, so we have final assembly. We have the castle nut on the shaft through the drum brakes. We have the upper ball joint, lower ball joint. I had to replace all of the cotter pins. They were destroyed, and then the steering linkage, the tie rod. One quick note: since you have access down here, these are going to spin on you, and there's no way to hold them. All right, so use your impact wrench and fasten up the bottom one, and that will suck the top one in to the steering knuckle, and that way you can do this by hand. You can do the top castle nut by hand. Okay. And then this one, you have, well, you can't see, it's kind of dark. Let me get out of the way. Maybe you can see. You have the ability to put a box wrench on the top and hold it in place while you fasten the lower nut. All right, so that is final assembly. You just push that in there. Like I said, there's a retaining clip on the shaft, so you have to go back and forth, find the splines, and then jam it in a few times till it clicks, and it's going to be flush like it is right now. It's going to be flush to the yeah, see, it's flush in there. Okay, and like I was telling you earlier, make sure you put the grease inside and then cover the boot. That way you're nice and clean out here, and you don't get anything all over your hand. This is all nice and clean. I put a little grease on the splines here, and I put a little grease on the splines in back there before I put it in. And then there's a bearing inside the drum, so I greased that up. All right, so that is completed. I just got to put the wheel back on, but it's all done. Mike Machine's out. Any questions or comments, leave it below. Thank you.